So today's topic, Mark, we're going to be talking about building new mental models, and of course,
Right.
that's one of the leader task in the facilitate team learning competency domain
Hmm.
that is taught as part of our building and leading resilient teams certificate program taught by our college, university, and workforce development. Education and training partners. Building new mental models is a leader task that came out of the research that we did back in 2018 and 2019. So, Mark, I'm going to throw it over to you
Sure.
to give the listeners a definition of what a mental model even is. What are we talking about here?
Yeah. So when people hear the term mental model, I mean, it's kind of obvious in the statement, but really, if you think about it, a mental model, if you go all the way back to even as a young child, right, you start developing a mental model early on in your life. The way things work, the way this goes. I do this, I get that. I get here, I get through there. You learn these things. And as we grow and learn more and take in more information, more knowledge, we start figuring out how things work. And then that's the comfortable space in our head. We've built a mental model. Um, if I want to go build a shed, there's a way that that's done, and you learn that through age and experience and reading and education and all of that. And then you get into the workplace and you start developing a mental model. This is how work gets done here. This is the best way. This is a successful way. I start sort of sticking that in my brain. So if anybody said, "Hey, can you get one of those documents knocked out for us?" Sure. I've got a template, I got a mental model, I've created it, I know how it's supposed to work, and then I deliver said product or what have you. So people over their lifetime, they learn more and more and put more knowledge in their head, and they go, "Ooh, here's a more efficient way. I'm going to adjust my mental model on how things get done, whatever those things are." And so that's what people historically do when they learn to develop a mental model. And we all have them. I mean, doesn't matter what you're talking about. It could be, personal stuff, business stuff, it doesn't matter. But
And
that's essentially what it is.
We have a definition. One of our
Hmm.
Emilio working behind the scenes here, I believe, has
Hmm.
posted a definition. A mental model is a conceptual framework used to relate knowledge, attribute meaning, and
Hmm.
shape our understanding and expectations of the work environment. That's exactly
There you
what
go.
Mark was just explaining there. And so talk
Yep.
about the importance of shared mental models for teams, particularly in the workplace. We have some shared mental models, right? We have a
Sure.
shared mental model of how an RBLP live is going to go,
Hmm.
for example, right? So
Right.
talk about the shared mental models and their importance in the workplace.
Yeah, shared mental models are really critical in the workplace because you will see teams come together and they will start working and solving problems. And somebody might have one way of doing it, another person has another, and they sort of blend those ideas. And it doesn't happen overnight. This takes a while. But a team, as they work together, finding the best of what right looks like, they'll eventually develop a shared mental model. If somebody goes to do something and a new one on the team, and you'll have 8 people in the team working on something, number 9 joins the team and they go, "Oh, hey, Carl, we don't do it that way. You got to do it this way because it'll fall out. We've learned." "Oh, okay, that's good to know." And Carl learns and picks up in the mental model, and he joins the team. So that's really important that teams over time will develop the shared mental model itself as to what right looks like and success looks like.
Yep, indeed. And, the we say in our curriculum, I'm going to read right from it here, that shared
Hmm.
mental models are not identical.
Right.
We're not
Absolutely
talking
not.
about making clones here. Instead, they're
No.
compatible and complementary. They enable
Hmm.
better coordination, cooperation, communication, enhance the team's ability to solve problems, improve, and innovate. Most importantly, shared mental models enable better collective decision making. So one of the examples I like to use with people is a football team. A
Hmm.
football team, even if it's the Philadelphia Eagles, bless their hearts, a football team has shared mental models. That's what enables them to run plays together. The playbook is a collection
Hmm.
of potential mental models that, once committed to memory, once each person understands their unique contribution to the play. And then we have what you described there, a shared mental model, not identical
Hmm.
but
Nope.
complementary and
Right.
compatible. Everybody knows what their piece of the puzzle is, so to say. So a football team, as it works through a season, they get the playbook gets more and more ingrained in their head, and they've run these plays over and over and over again, and they know the nuances of each play, and that's what allows a team, a quarterback, to call an audible at the line of scrimmage. The quarterback approaches the line of scrimmage, takes a look, doesn't like the way the defense is set up, and calls an audible, changes the play. The play that we called in the huddle, no good anymore. Audible, calls a new play. The 11 folks out there on the field, they hear it and they know what that is, because they reach into their back into their heads and they say, well, there it is. I have that play that was just called. I have a mental model shared with everyone else, so we all know what we're getting ready to do. And a football team that works very hard throughout the season to get on the same sheet of music, right? For everybody to understand exactly what those mental models mean. Now, what happens, of course, is that from time to time the playbook needs to change, right? If something has that, if playbook changes, and we have to alter, and that creates a problem, right? Because now it's messing with the mental models that the players all had in their heads. So talk about how change in the workplace can come up against mental models, maybe even mental models that are really sort of solidified, right? Talk about how why change in the workplace is hard, and the importance of this leader task: build new mental models.
Yeah, it's important because, like we said a moment ago, you get a shared mental model, and again, it's not an identical think, it's not group think, it is everybody understanding what their part is. And so over time, there'll be changes in the workplace, right? So there's a new process, they're implementing a new system or the way we do things, right? And all of a sudden you have folks that they have what we call entrenched mental models. Now, entrenched mental models aren't necessarily evil. I don't want to paint that picture, okay? Because when somebody's committed that process to memory and they're so dedicated to it, their performance is dead on target. They're meeting their quality measures, the whole 9 yards, and they know it works, right?
Well, in fact, we work really hard to get everybody on the same sheet of music, right? We train, we know that's not the way we do it. We work very, very, very hard to get everybody on the same sheet of music.
Yeah.
And then we change the song because we think the new
right.
tune sounds better, right? And so that's
Yeah.
the paradox, right? Is that we work so hard to get everybody on the process, on the procedure, do it by the book, follow the standard operating procedure. This is what we've learned works best, and then change
comes into play.
Yeah, change comes into play, and we have to learn.
There you go.
We have to, and of course, this is what if you've ever heard somebody say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, or hey, boss, that's not the way we do it around here. Why this is working fine? Why are we changing it? And this is where leaders, frontline supervisors, middle managers can find themselves being the source of a lot of adversity themselves.
Absolutely.
In the workplace, because they're fixing things that aren't necessarily broke. They're changing, making improvements to processes, improvements to procedures, products, and services. Sometimes innovating entirely new things, which really gets into that single loop, double loop thing, right?
Absolutely.
And so this is we actually leaders sometimes become the source of much adversity because they're pressing change all the time. They want people to do better, setting stretch goals, forcing people to change the way they do things, which necessitates a change in mental models. And a radical change in mental models comes about from double loop learning, right, Mark? Tell them what that is. Single loop versus double loop.
Yeah. So once the entrenched mental model is there and folks go, wait a minute, you're moving my cheese. Stop messing up what I know. Okay. I've got to relearn this all over again. And it's frustrating, right? So this is where we can go to single loop learning. And when we do that, we take a look at our processes and the things we're doing and the way it's working, and we're going, ooh, let's tweak that. Let's tweak that. But still the same output is what we're getting to. Whatever that end state is, we're still working that, but we're tweaking it as we go to go, ooh, it would be better if we did one quality control check at the end instead of 3 through the process, because it drags our time down and we don't really learn anything from one step to step 3. So let's make it better. Let's do one quality control check. It takes half the time and we still get a good quality product. Good. That's a solution. Then we go into double loop learning, where very often we have to go all the way back to question, guys, why do we do this again? Is this still relevant? No, they got that new software put in and we don't really need it. So why are we still keeping these on ledgers? I mean, isn't it being pulled by the system and documented? Yeah. So why are we doing both? I mean, do we need that still going on? I don't think so, but nobody told us to stop, right? So now we got to go back and question, why do we even do this again? That's the real thing you have to do. And sometimes you see this all the time. I used to watch it when new HR systems for tracking time and hours would be implemented into a business unit, and people like the old system with the entrenchmental model. They would be working 2 systems and taking twice as much time to enter data because they didn't want to turn loose of the past. They didn't want to get on board with anything. And it was amazing to see people do this, but yet the system was faster, twice as fast, and was more accurate. But they did not want to let go of the past. It was like grabbing and like pulling their fingers from
that's because
but once they got on board, single loop learning comes into play.
Yeah, and they worked very hard to learn the processes, learn the procedures, to build the shared mental model so that they work collaboratively as a team. They're answering each other's sentences. What that person needs before they even ask for it. It's and then we get them all on the same sheet of music, and then we change the music because we think the new tune is going to sound better. Not that the old music was bad, just that we believe the new music is going to be a little bit better. Back to the football analogy, if a football team they progress through the season, towards the end of the season, the playbook is memorized by everyone, every variation. They've run it dozens and dozens of times, so they know what to do depending on the let's say the defense's reaction to that play. And let's say they go all the way through and win a Super Bowl, right? And so they celebrate, they win the Super Bowl, they take a few months off, and when they come back to training camp, and the head coach comes in and he's holding up a playbook over his head. Do you think he's holding up the same playbook that got him to the Super Bowl last year, or do we think this is a new playbook with a lot of new plays in it? Of course, it's new, right? And players are griping. They're like, "Oh, coach, what's up with the new playbook? We just, we spent all that. We won the Super Bowl, for goodness sakes. That playbook was great." But the coach has to explain, listen, the environment has changed, just like in business. Mm-hmm. The competitive environment is constantly changing. So he says the environment has changed. We're not playing the same schedule of teams that we played last year. Mm-hmm. We don't have the same players that we had last year. We've got some rookies. We had some injuries. We had some people retire. We've traded some folks. And so we don't have the same team. We're not playing the same teams. We're not playing in the same stadiums. Nothing is the same. And oh, by the way, we won the Super Bowl. So they've spent a lot of time dissecting every single thing that we did last year. So if we come back and do the same thing we did before, the likelihood of winning another Super Bowl is going to be very small. And so there's a new playbook built around what's good on the strengths of that particular team. And if they had a running offense, primarily a running offense the year before, and this year the coach's vision is to adopt more of a passing offense, and that's going to probably cause some double loop learning, right? Because people are going to question whether this is a good idea, to make this shift. Do we actually have the players now? Do we have the receivers? Do we have the tight ends? Is our quarterback season enough to actually transition to
Right.
this new type of offense. So it's a paradox. We work very hard in
Mm-hmm.
business, in organizations, to put everybody to build shared mental models,
Right.
understandings of how things happen in the workplace, to get very smooth, build cohesive teams, positive
Mm-hmm.
climate, all of these things working very well together. But then somebody decides that we need to change the way we're doing something, or change the systems that are supporting it, for example, and that can create havoc. And this is why change is so hard, right? I've read a lot of books on change management and why change initiative fails, and I'm convinced that it boils down to this simple fact that change requires people to build new mental models, and
Absolutely.
building new mental models is hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult. That's why it's a leader task. It requires some savvy. It requires the ability to have constructive dialogue. You have to build psychological safety. You have to
Mm-hmm.
have a positive climate and cohesion and purpose and all of these things that allow you to help a team move from entrenched mental models into a new way of doing things. So if
Right.
you read books on change, all of them, they may not use the term mental model, but read between the lines, and
Mm-hmm.
that is exactly what they're talking about.